It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the US of A and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations, we cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
The Bassmaster Classic is going on as we speak at Lake Ray Roberts, north of Fort Worth, Texas, and I'm out of the studio covering this event, both on the water and in Fort Worth, where the weigh-ins are taking place every day after 54 of the best anglers in the world get off the water with their 5 heaviest bass. Who's going to come out on top? It's still anyone's guess, but we'll bring you highlights from the Bassmaster Classic and Bassmasters Outdoor Expo taking place in Fort Worth next weekend on this program. That's why this week on the show, we've got a few of my favorite interviews from last year to share with you, as well as a brand new interview. That new interview that you'll hear in just a minute is with Captain Liza Fitzgerald, the woman behind the Florida Coastal Conservation Association's annual Star Tournament. She's going to tell you about this event going on right now that you can enter and potentially win some serious cash and prizes while fishing in Florida this summer. After that, we'll share one of my favorite hunting stories from last year when we talked to Natalie Krebs, the senior deputy editor for Outdoor Life, who flew to New Mexico to tag along on a very unique quail hunt where the hunters weren't bagging their birds with shotguns. Nope, they were using falcons, in this case, a goshawk by the name of Hash Brown. Another hunting story we'll share involves a YouTube video that literally had me in tears as a duck hunter and dog owner. It's the tale of a stubborn black lab named Sam and the efforts of his owner to not give up and keep working to turn him into a duck dog he could be proud of. Grayson Schaefer, the man behind this short film, will tell you more about Sam, the hunters, and what went into the production of this wonderful film that you'll find on YouTube. Just simply look for Yeti Presents Sam. One more thing we'll cover today is a conversation we had last year with Johnny Candle, the former National Walleye Tour champion and full-time guide and fishing instructor who makes his home at Devil's Lake in North Dakota. This is one of the premier fisheries in the nation, not only for walleye, but a whole lot more. And Johnny will tell you all about making a fishing trip here just after the bottom of the hour. By the way, if you're heading to Devil's Lake to catch some walleye, you'll definitely want to take some tasty fillets home. They are delicious, but of course, that means you're going to need a sharp knife to fillet them. That's where Work Sharp Tools comes to the rescue. They've got a whole line of manual and electric knife sharpeners, so you can get your fillet knives sharp and ready to go to clean and fillet that mess of walleye you are going to love for several dinners to come. You'll find Work Sharp Tools knife and tool sharpeners and department hardware and sporting goods stores all over North America. You can also find them online anytime at worksharptools.com. Our first guest today on America Outdoors Radio is Captain Liza Fitzgerald. She is the Florida CCA Star Director, and Florida is having a statewide tournament. It's presented by Yamaha. It's going on now. It runs through Labor Day, and they are giving away $500,000 in prizes and scholarships. Liza, this is a really big deal, isn't it?
It is quite a large deal. We are in our 7th year of competition and award, as you had noted, close to $500,000 in prizes, which do include college scholarships in our Academy Sports and Outdoors Youth Scholarship Division. It is over 100 days of fishing, and it makes it a competition that anglers of all skill levels have an opportunity to participate and win something.
Well, why don't you explain how this works? I understand it's a catch and release tournament, but why don't you explain exactly how you submit your entries and what species are involved?
Most definitely. The way that we submit our entries is through an app, which you can download through the Google App Store or through your phone. It is easy to participate once you have the app on your phone. You do need to pick up an official measuring device, and it is the West Marine official measuring device, 4-star. Each year it changes in color. This year it's purple. You can go to your local West Marine store or many bait and tackle shops throughout the state of Florida. They're free. You just have to ask for one. You'll take a picture of your fish on the official measuring device, submit it into one of the 16 different divisions. There are 17 divisions, but that last division is one that anyone can participate in that, and that is the Costa Kick Plastic Trash Division, where we have you picking up trash out of our Florida coastal waters, taking a photograph of your full 5-gallon bucket, and submitting them through the app. So it is a catch photo release competition. We have you release the fish if you care to, but we are not opposed to you actually keeping that fish for dinner if you choose to.
All right. So in terms of the species, I know redfish are part of this, so we'll talk more about that in a second. Is any species eligible for entry, and how do you determine the winners? Is it based on length? Is it based on overall size, or is it random?
So we wanted to make sure, as I said earlier, that all anglers of every skill level have an ability to participate. So the species that are prize-winning species are redfish, snook, trout, tarpon, kingfish, grouper, and mahi-mahi. Those are the non-tagged species. However, every fish you catch, every fish can be photographed and submitted into the conservation division. And this makes our anglers citizen biologists by providing us information on where these species are captured, the size of the fish, if they were harvested or released, and in what condition and where.
Gotcha. All right. Now, you do have some tagged fish categories too, and I understand for a tagged redfish, if you get one, you might end up winning a brand new boat powered by a Yamaha outboard.
That is correct. In the West Marine tagged redfish division, if you are one of the first 5 anglers to catch one of the tagged redfish, you will have your choice, depending on what's left over. The first angler has their choice of a Contender, a Pathfinder, or a Spider Vapor, all powered by Yamaha, sitting on a trailer. 2 youth anglers will have their option of a brand new salt marsh skiff with a Minn Kota trolling motor on the bow, Humminbird electronics, and a shallow water anchor on the transom with a 40 horsepower Yamaha. So everybody has a shot at winning a brand new boat if they recapture one of the West Marine tagged redfish. But it's not just tagged redfish in this competition. We have something for our offshore anglers as well. We have the Tigress Outriggers and Gear tagged dolphin. And if you are the first registered angler to catch a tagged dolphin, you will win $10,000 cash.
Wow. So, Lisa, I understand that youth can participate as well, and I do remember reading that scholarships are involved too. Why don't you explain that?
Yes, well, definitely. You know, we love to get our children fishing. We love to get kids out on the water. And we have $100,000 in college scholarships available each year of the competition. 2 $25,000 scholarships, one from Academy Sports and Outdoors, the other from Real Tree Fishing, and then 10 $5,000 scholarships available. And to date, we have awarded $600,000 in college scholarships just for kids going out and catching fish of any of the species that we mentioned, and they also can catch ladyfish, jacks, or sheephead, snapper, and include those in their species. This year, it will be a grand total of $700,000 in college scholarships just for kids going out and catching fish.
All right. And one more thing I need to clarify here is how you choose the winners. Is it random draw for each species?
You know, that is a very good question. Again, fortifying the idea that anglers of every skill level have a chance to win in the competition, it is a random drawing of all of the entries. So all of the entries that are made into the trout division, we will draw 1st through 6th place. The only divisions that do not have a random draw are the tagged redfish division.
All right, I've got one last question. Is this only open to Florida residents? Because there's a lot of folks who like to come to Florida to fish. Can the rest of us enter too?
Anyone from any state can enter the competition. You just must be a CCA member and registered in the STAR competition before you begin submitting your fish.
And folks, the website where you can do that is really simple. It's ccaflstar.com. That's for the Coastal Conservation Association in Florida, ccaflstar.com. That's the website to go to. Go ahead and register. The registration, if you're not a CCA member already, includes a CCA membership for a year. It's a great organization doing great things for our fisheries and making sure that we as anglers get to enjoy them too. And this sounds like a fantastic tournament to take part in. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you so much.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
The Dalles in Oregon is your base camp for fishing fun. Reel in big salmon, tangle with steelhead, bass, and walleye, or wrestle a monster sturgeon to the boat. After the day is done, you'll find a variety of lodging options around town. Need to resupply? We've got you covered with sporting goods stores plus great dining, breweries, wineries, and can't-miss attractions like the Gorge Discovery Center. Plan your fishing getaway today at ExploreTheDalles.com. That's ExploreTheDalles.com.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We're going to talk about bird hunting today, but it's not the bird hunting you're used to. We're talking about falconry. That's right, using falcons to hunt birds, whether it be waterfowl or upland birds. With us here to tell you more about it is Natalie Krebs. She is the senior editor for Outdoor Life. She wrote a great story accompanied by some wonderful photos that you'll find in the current edition about a New Mexico falconry hunt. Natalie, great to have you on the air again.
Thanks for having me, John.
So, Natalie, most of our listeners, when we talk hunting, they're talking about, people with shotguns that are after ducks or quail or pheasant. But falconry has been around a lot longer than shotguns have. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the history and how worldwide this passion is, too?
Sure. So falconry, nobody's exactly sure, but it goes back millennia. Some people think it originated in Mongolia. There's a big history of it in the Middle East and Hungary. And folks have been using birds of prey to help them catch game, from birds to rabbits and more, for years, for a long time. And because it is so varied globally, it's kind of evolved into all these different strains of falconry today, many of which are still practiced. And in this particular instance that we'll be talking about today is falconry for quail and desert rabbits.
Right. And, I got to visit the Archives of Falconry. It's located near Boise, Idaho, where the Peregrine Fund's World Center for Birds of Prey is. And in addition to seeing all sorts of raptors, to include falcons there, you get to see, again, how worldwide this is and how long it's been going on. They have exhibits there from the 1700s in England. They've got even older things from the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. Again, falconry, folks, it's not just a thing. It's a passion. It's a sport that's been happening, like you said, for millennia. Let's talk about some of the birds that are used. You mentioned Mongolia, and I vividly remember seeing a video of a falconer using actually a golden eagle to take down deer in Mongolia. I know that's a little bit abnormal. What are some of the more normal falcons used?
Sure. So there are birds like Harris hawks, which are often used for like squirrel hunting, especially in northeast U.S. The guy I went hunting with in New Mexico owns a peregrine, and he also owns a northern goshawk. His name is hash brown. That is the bird that I hunted with.
And let's talk about how falconry hunts usually occur, because the one you did, and we're going to talk about again in just a sec, is a little different than most I know. I'm used to a falconer going out somewhere, letting the falcon circle and do its thing, find the prey, get the prey, and bring it back. That's not how your hunt went at all, is it?
No, it's not. The best way that I can describe it, and how Tyler, who I went hunting with, kind of prepared me for it, was think about upland hunting, desert quail hunting, behind a pack of dogs, but instead of a shotgun, you've got a bird of prey on your arm. And that's sort of what it's like. You know, the dogs set out and they're searching cover for birds, and if they find a covey, ideally Tyler would walk up and flush those birds, and Hash Brown, his goshawk, would take off and try and catch a quail on the initial flush. So that was in many ways very familiar to me. I've been on plenty of upland hunts like that, but it was totally different because nobody else can take a shotgun, and you know, you're all your hopes are on this bird to try and catch prey.
This is like one of the coolest concepts I've ever heard of when it comes to bird hunting. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about your hunt in terms of where it happened and who you went with?
Sure. So we went with, his name is Tyler Sladen, and he is a 27-year-old Army veteran who lives in Albuquerque. And so we went hunting, and by we went with a photographer who shot photos for our story and a videographer with Project Upland. So there's also like a 10-minute short film from our hunt that you could watch. But we all met in February in Albuquerque, and we went hunting on the outskirts of Albuquerque. It was actually pretty interesting because it was a chunk of public land that held a lot of quail, but you can't discharge a firearm there, so you can hunt, but it's pretty hard to quail hunt without a shotgun unless you happen to have a bird of prey like Tyler does. So we went out there, and it was one of the stranger places I've ever hunted. It was in some ways a little sketchy. Like we still heard gunshots, there was trash everywhere, but it was also beautiful at the same time. You know, you're in high desert with this like sparkling view of Albuquerque below you, sprinting after a hawk, which was the other thing that nobody mentioned to me was how much you have to run when you're hunting behind a bird. And that's simply because once he goes after a quail or a rabbit, he can fly much faster than you, and it's so hilly that he can get out of sight. So you want to keep up with him as best as possible to keep an eye on him, make sure coyotes don't sneak up on him, that sort of thing.
Wow, I didn't know that. A question about the quail that you were after in this part of New Mexico. What species were they?
We were chasing Gambel's quail.
Okay. And how did the hunt go?
It was a little tough simply in terms of numbers. At the time, Hash Brown he is still like a juvenile hawk. He was in his first year, and so he was still learning. I mean, it's like taking a relatively new upland hunter with you. They're going to miss birds.
Right.
And they're also, it's like a prey-predator relationship. Any hunter knows you're not successful every time you go. So he missed some birds. It was tough conditions in some parts, but he had enough success that I think he probably caught, we went out 3 days and he caught something every day, whether it was a quail or a desert cottontail. And that is also key to training a new bird, is that they have to have that success. Just like, taking a kid hunting for the first time, they need to know that there's a reward, that it's fun, and build him into the mature predatory hawk that he will become in adulthood.
Very cool. What about the dogs? What kind of dogs were you hunting behind for this, and why the particular breed?
Sure. So the main, we hunted behind about 6 setters, and so they were doing a lot of the flushing work, looking for the birds, the quail specifically. And then we had one Vizsla with us, and Vizslas are actually traditionally falconry dogs. They're Hungarian, and so his job was more interesting. He stuck closer to Hash Brown, and especially if Hash Brown flew off and we were running, trailing him because he can fly much faster than we can run. Trigger can keep up with him much better. Trigger is the Vizsla. And so his job is to sort of do the grunt work on the ground. If Hash Brown is in pursuit of a quail, Trigger's job is to make sure that quail doesn't dive into the ground or go into cover. And if it does, reflush it to get it back in the air for Hash Brown to continue to chase. And then if Hash Brown does catch something, say a rabbit that is making squealing distress noises, his job is to sort of stand bodyguard while Hash Brown is on the ground, eating the rabbit, he defends hash brown against coyotes and any other sort of prey that might come in on the ground attracted by that rabbit's noise. So they're pretty close buddies. It's really cool to watch them work together.
Natalie, I'll tell you what, I wish I was there. Sounds like an absolutely fascinating story you chased down. And folks, you can read about it in the Primal issue. That's the brand new issue of Outdoor Life. And you've got to check out the photos by Nick Kelly, too. He did a fantastic job of photographing hash brown, along with all sorts of other great photographs that really capture the essence of falconry and this story in New Mexico. Where can folks watch the video, too?
They can find that at projectupland.com. And it also, if you forget that, there's a link in the story, both on Outdoor Life's website and in our print issue.
The story is titled Prey Drive. The author, Natalie Krebs, senior editor for Outdoor Life. Definitely worth a read, definitely worth a look. Pick up the latest edition of Outdoor Life and check it out. And go to projectupland.com and check out the video. Natalie, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks for having me, John.
Ready to step up to a quality-built rifle or shotgun that's a true classic? Check out Henry Repeating Arms, American-made. There's over 200 models to choose from in a variety of finishes and calibers for hunters and target shooters. Many of these are lever-action models with a look right out of the Old West. Don't be deceived, though. Henry Repeating Arms are modern, rugged, accurate, reliable, and have a lifetime guarantee. Find out more and order a free catalog today at henryusa.com. That's henryusa.com.
Hunting and fishing are exercises in hope. Before you head into the woods, you hope to tag out on a deer you'll have to field dress. Before you make that first cast, you hope for a big fish to clean and fillet. When your hopes are realized, you'll need a sharp knife. Whether you sharpen that blade on a power sharpener in the shop or a manual sharpener in the field, WorkSharp has the tool for you. Look for WorkSharp products in sporting goods stores near you or online at WorkSharpTools.com.
You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We've got a special guest for you today. It's Johnny Candle, that very well-known tournament champion in the world of walleye. Johnny, great to have you on the air.
Hey, it's good to be with you again, John.
Johnny, I thought we would talk about your home lake today, Devil's Lake. It's the biggest lake in North Dakota at 160,000 acres. When does the ice usually come off of Devil's Lake?
Well, typically it's sometime between the very last part of April and the first part of May. Occasionally we'll have open water as early as the end of March, but that's very, very unusual. And this year's shaping up to be what I would call very normal, if you can use that word when you're talking about the weather. And it looks like we're going to be right in that end of April time frame again.
So when the ice does come off, it's a big lake, and there's a lot of places you can access the water from. What does the typical first-time angler at Devil's Lake do wrong? Any advice you could give them besides hiring you as a guide?
Well, I think what most folks do, John, and I'm guilty of this myself sometimes, we get so excited because things feel warm to us, right? It's been a long, cold winter. We've got, heck, in Devil's Lake case, 30-plus inches of ice, and it takes a couple weeks of warmth or maybe even a month of warmth to get that to go away. So we start thinking everything's warm, the fish are going to be excited, they're going to be fired up, they're going to want to be shallow, and they're really not. Just because the ice is gone does not mean that the water has typically warmed up. I think a lot of folks jump in the boat and they get out and they go to the shallow, try to find warmest water first, and the fish haven't quite got there. I think we as anglers fish ahead of the fish. Now, that's not always a bad thing. I'd rather be where the fish are coming to than the spot where the fish left from. But I believe most anglers early season, and I'm talking immediately after ice out, start too shallow.
You know, I'm literally holding up my hand and waving it and saying, guilty, I'm that guy. And it's not just for walleye. I make that classic mistake with bass as well. So that's a really good piece of advice there. How do you go about catching these fish right after ice off on Devil's Lake?
Well, vertically jigging is great. It's your ice fishing techniques from before. Max Lure, obviously, with the Sonic bait fish, is an incredible jigging spoon. Jigging Rapalas work really, really well. Maybe even just a jig and a minnow and just try to sit there as still as you can. You almost want to feel like you're still ice fishing, only you're doing it out of a boat. Now, I'm not going to say that trolling doesn't work. I have caught fish trolling many, many times early in the spring like that, but I do it more as a search technique. I'm not necessarily expecting to catch all of the fish I put in the boat that day trolling, but it's a great way to cover water and get a feel for what types of structure the fish are on, maybe catch one or two and then double back and sit there and fish a little slower. You've got to realize we're still talking water temperatures below 40 degrees, so the fish aren't going to be real fired up. They're not going to want to chase a bait a long distance, but it's a great way to find those early season fish.
Speaking of structure at Devil's Lake is a little bit unique because I understand the water has gotten a lot higher in recent years, and there's some old road beds too. So where are you looking for these fish?
Yeah, we do have a situation here, John, that's not like anywhere else in the United States that I'm aware of. A lot of flooding, a lot of man-made structures that are underwater. And some of those flooded roadbeds are incredible places for early season walleye fishing right after the ice goes out. They've got a nice shallower, not shallow, but shallower top to them, so the fish can hang out in the ditch, be a little more comfortable, and when it's time to feed, move up on top of that roadbed, which might only be 3 or 4 feet shallower than where they were resting, and they've got a nice place to feed. Or we look for those offshore pieces of structure. I like to look for things that aren't connected to the main shoreline, things like submerged islands, different long rocky points, stuff that's a little bit further from shore. Like I said, those fish really haven't started that migration instantly when the ice goes off. That's about a week or two away. So you want to get out in the middle of the lake where those fish are just hanging out, waiting for the right water temperature to make a move.
I'm starting to pick up on a trend here. You better be glued to your electronics, and you better have the ability to mark some waypoints and find them again, huh?
Oh, that's always the case, John. I give seminars all across the country, and one of my rules of thumb to catch more fish is don't waste time fishing until you know they're there. Marine electronics nowadays have come a long, long way. Every company that builds one builds a really, really good one now. And if you don't see a fish underneath your boat, that means there's not one there to catch. So, yeah, I spend a lot of time looking, and maybe some days not a whole lot of time fishing, but at least I know my baits are in front of fish when I finally stop to try to catch one.
What is the limit for walleye at Devil's Lake, and what is the size range we're talking about in terms of an average fish and a big fish?
So Devil's Lake, we're allowed 5 fish per day, and as a guest or even a resident, you're allowed 10 fish in your possession. So we have fairly liberal limits. We don't have any size restrictions. That's nice. And we do not have a closed season as well. So that means as soon as the ice is gone, we can get out there regardless of the date on the calendar. As far as fish size go, the majority of the fish you're going to catch are going to be eater-sized fish, and that's, in my mind, between 14 and 18 inches long. That's the overwhelming majority of the population here. But we have a lot of fish up in that 6, 7, 8-pound range, and occasionally you'll hear of a 10 or 11-pound bruiser. We're not really known for trophy fish, but it does happen. If you get a 4 or 5-pounder, you're taking a picture, smiling ear to ear, and pretty dang happy to have one. But a lot of fish to catch, have many, many 100-fish days in the peak of our season, and I think that's what attracts people to Devil's Lake. It's unique, it's flooded, lots of ways to catch them, and a lot of fish to reel in.
We should probably also mention the fact that despite the fact that Devil's Lake is kind of the mecca for walleye anglers in the United States, that you've got other species of fish there to catch too.
We do. A very, very unique situation there as well. We have the walleye, of course. We're famous for yellow perch in the wintertime through the ice. We have an absolute incredible population of northern pike. I would put Devil's Lake up against almost any Canadian pike fishing destination. We have a good, solid population of white bass as well, and a very small but catchable population of black crappies. The only thing we have in the lake that would be even remotely considered considered a non-desirable species would be the very, very small population of white suckers that we have. I think I've lived here 20 years and I've caught 4 of them. So that's how very rarely you see one of those. And it's very rare to have a lake, John, that you can go to and 99.9% of the time when you set the hook, you're going to reel in a game fish. No catfish, no carp, no drum, nothing that anyone would really consider, like I said before, an undesirable species. So very, very unique, and it makes it very exciting.
You're making me want to come visit you at Devil's Lake, Johnny, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do too. Let's talk about booking a trip with you and where to stay.
Well, I've got all of that under one umbrella. I run a guide service here on Devil's Lake in North Dakota, and I also have a few small rental properties, some small park model homes that I rent out to my guide clients. And if anyone wants information on that, they can visit my website, johnnykandel.com, and all the information you'd need is there.
That's johnnykandel.com. One of the things we should mention are the seminars and walleye universities that you run. Tell our listeners in about 30 seconds about those.
Well, I do a series of on-the-water walleye schools, John, where you bring your own boat, your own equipment, and you come to one of the 3 destinations. One is Devil's Lake, North Dakota. One is Lake Vermilion, Minnesota, and one is out your way on the Potholes Reservoir near Othello, Washington. Bring your own boat, your own equipment. Myself and my crew of teachers get in the boat with you, teach you how to find walleye and catch walleye with your gear so you can go home and do it again on your own. 4-day classes, and again, the information's on my website. For more details, you can give me a shout, and I'll be sure to walk you through the process.
So whether you want to go to Devil's Lake and fish with Johnny Kandel, or if you want to go there and fish on your own, or maybe go to one of these walleye schools and really up your game, the website is the same, johnnykandel.com. That's johnnykandel.com. Johnny, always a pleasure to have you on America Outdoors Radio.
I look forward to the next time, John.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
Campers, adventure seekers, hunters, and foodies. No matter the lifestyle, we can all agree on one thing. Great food and great people are worth remembering. At Camp Chef, we don't just make grills. We create each product knowing that a warm meal is always better when it's shared with those we love. Learn more about Camp Chef grills, smokers, and portable cooking equipment at campchef.com. That's campchef.com for a better way to cook outdoors.
We love our children. We protect them. We guide them. We prepare them for life in the world. With all that we do, from deep in our hearts, we cannot control all things. Life-threatening illnesses and disabilities affect far too many of our children each year. While we cannot change the circumstance, we can make dreams come true. Dreams to provide hope, to provide spiritual healing and strength, to provide moments of happiness and relief in the hardest of times. We can give a glimmer of light and hope in a time of darkness and despair. Join huntofalifetime.org to help make dreams come true, to provide hope for children with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Hunt of a Lifetime is a non-profit organization fulfilling dreams for hunting and fishing trips to youth 21 and under with life-threatening illnesses and disabilities. Visit huntofalifetime.org to learn how you can make a difference.
Hey, how'd the meeting go with Tommy's school counselor today?
Well, not exactly as planned. I think we need help.
Help? Why do we need help?
Well, I asked her about paying for college, and she said that's not something they do.
Maybe it is time to get some help. Even if Tommy just goes to state college, it's going to cost at least $25,000 a year. We'll have to rate our retirement and pay for Tommy's tuition. There's got to be a better way.
There is a better way. A way where you can pay less for college, or even receive college tuition free, regardless of your income or your student's grades. A way for you to keep your hard-earned income and savings for your future and spend less on college, while virtually eliminating the need for student loans. Get the facts about college admissions and tuition by going to tuitionprograms.org. That's tuitionprograms.org. Tuitionprograms.org. Get the facts about college admissions and tuition by going to tuitionprograms.org.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is the voice for your public lands, waters, and wildlife. From the Canadian Yukon to the Florida Everglades, we're stepping up to conserve North America's public lands, defend our hunting and fishing traditions, and expand access to the outdoors. Find out how you can get involved at backcountryhunters.org.
It's time to tell you a story. It's both an audio story and a visual story, and it's all about a black Labrador Retriever that's a duck dog that goes by the name of Sam. Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We just told you about training your new pup that you might have gotten for Christmas, but maybe you're a person who's got an old dog, maybe sitting next to you right now as you're listening to this show. If you do, I've got to send you to YouTube, and I'm going to have you look up a short film by Tallweg Creative. It's called Sam. It's presented by Yeti. Just type in Yeti and Sam, and you're going to see a 10-minute film about a duck hunter and a stubborn black Labrador Retriever that is absolutely going to have you in tears. You're going to love it, though. With us here to tell you more about is the man who put this together, Grayson Schaefer. He's a partner with Tallweg Creative out of New Mexico. He and the Tallweg team, they tell compelling stories about the outdoors and individuals who are passionate about the outdoors through these wonderful short films they put together. Grayson, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, John.
Incredible movie. Absolutely love this. Probably one of the best short films I've ever seen. It had me bawling. I'm a 57-year-old man who's an ex-cop and military officer, and you've got me sitting there in front of the computer with tears streaming down my face. This is really good stuff you put together here.
Well, I think it's all just part of our larger, deeper plan to help outdoorsmen become more in touch with their emotions.
You certainly did it with me, and I'm pretty sure you can do it with a lot of our listeners, too, when they check out this film. Question for you, how did this film, involving a Missouri duck hunter named Steve Cayley, his son, and this stubborn black Labrador named Sam, how did this all come together?
The Cayleys have an interesting relationship with Yeti Coolers. Their nephew is one of the guys at Yeti, and he had been telling us for years about, this sort of secret little duck hunting spot that his family had up in Missouri, and that he would go up there, and that these guys, that they're not professional duck hunters, they're not sponsored duck hunters, but they just live and eat and breathe it pretty much 365 days a year. I mean, if they're not out there in their duck blinds hunting during the fall and winter, they are in there, doing conservation and upkeep and trying to just make it even better for the next year. And so he just thought that there was something up here that we needed to come and take a look at. And so we headed up there one July, and they had this beautiful old black Labrador female, Sam, who was, near the end of her career. And we just thought, hey, let's follow this dog during what will probably end up, being one of her last seasons.
It was really interesting how you put this together, and I had to watch this like 4 or 5 times before I started figuring out myself. When you watch the 9-minute film for the first time, you feel like you're spending several seasons with Big Sam, watching him go from a burden in the duck blind to a contributor out there to, getting Sam one last retrieve before he retires. I know you didn't spend several seasons doing this. It's just the magic of film made it feel that way. How long did you actually spend putting this together?
We actually did follow Sam over the course of a little bit more than a year. And not to give too much away, but I don't think we understood where we were in this dog's lifespan. And the nice thing about that is that you just kind of get this sense of a guy who like a lot of duck hunters, wants to sort of think of a dog as a tool and, a dog as a conservation tool. But, even the hardest of hard men can't keep from falling in love with their dogs. And I sort of have this feeling, just because it's happened to me a bunch of times. And, if you're sitting alone in a duck blind, a lot of times you end up telling your dog things that you wouldn't even tell other people. And, the dog's always there. And the other people in your life, they come and go, and they're not necessarily there all the time. They go to work, but the dog is always there. And so I think people create a bond with a dog that is almost sort of, a window into their own sort of inner psyche that I think is really powerful.
Grayson, spoken like a true duck hunter, that is for sure. This movie, like I said, it does have a real sad part. It also has a very hopeful and happy ending to it, too. But, you really strike some emotions with it, to include with Steve Cayley. And you can tell this wasn't acting. I mean, this was heartfelt on his part. How do you capture moments like that in what must seem like an artificial setting from the outside looking in?
Yeah, I think the thing that we really try to do is to find real people who are doing their thing, and we try to come into their world with a really light touch and really just sit down and have a conversation with them and try to draw out, their empathy and their personality so that they pretty soon forget that the camera's there, and then they're just having a conversation with you, and then you're just two guys talking about the thing that you love, and then the magic happens.
You're listening to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We're talking to Grayson Schaefer. He's a partner at Tallway Creative out of New Mexico. He put together a fantastic short film, and you can see it on YouTube. Just look up Yeti Sam. You're going to see a fantastic, heartwarming, and tear-jerking story about a stubborn black Labrador retriever. I'm telling you, you've got to spend 10 minutes to watch this film. Question, this is presented by Yeti Coolers, and there's some real subtle product placement in the film, but you never hear Yeti mentioned at all. You see that it's presented by them in the opening. You see that subtle product placement, but that's it. This is really just a story. It's a very masterful storytelling piece of content. Is this the new normal for advertisers? And if so, how does this benefit the brand versus the standard infomercial that we're so used to seeing?
Gosh, I wish that this was the new standard. And I think that, a lot of times people will give us some love about, about how subtle the branding is and what a light touch Yeti has. But Yeti is really one of the very few companies that is willing to take these kind of risks and to really trust filmmaker types to go out and just make the best story that they can, and not to sort of make it adhere to the brand book or a brief or a treatment necessarily. It's really more about finding those amazing characters and figuring out the story and letting the story drive the narrative. And I can't tell you how many times we've had other companies call us up and say, hey, we want what you do for Yeti, only, we're going to need a lot more product placement. And I think that to Yeti's credit, they just understand that if you treat the viewer and treat the audience with respect and you have a light touch, that's going to come back around for you.
Well, I think Yeti is definitely doing it right. And this isn't the only short film you've produced for them. You've produced some other real good ones. There's one, I believe the title is Carter, about a hardcore fisherman who spends time in Costa Rica. That's just another masterpiece. What are some of the other ones that you've produced for them?
The very first of those Yeti Presents was about a boat woman in the Grand Canyon who was trying to move from being a baggage boatman to rowing a dory. We did one on a skier named John Shockley, who lived up in Silverton in a 200 square foot cabin and was a ski guide all winter. We did one on a fishing guide named Mark Engler, who's kind of out of Durango, Colorado, and spends his days guiding for trout in the summer and then guiding ducks in the winter. And, there seems to be kind of a theme emerging. We kind of laugh that, we're out there telling the story of the lonely man whose wives have all left him because he, won't give up his sport. But, I guess the glove fits, if the shoe fits, we'll wear it.
Well, they're masterful stories, and folks, I can't recommend them enough. Again, just check out Yeti Presents. Number one, check out Yeti Presents Sam, and then from there, go through these other wonderful films that Yeti has available for you, all done by Tallway Creative out of New Mexico. And check out tallwaycreative.com because they've got other clients, too, they've done some great films for. We've got to go, but Grayson, very well done. Looking forward to watching more of your films and hearing more of the wonderful stories that you share with us out here on YouTube and other platforms too.
Thanks so much for having me, John. It's been fun.
You know, if we're going to talk about hunting, we've got to talk about Henry Repeating Arms, because they don't only sell lever-action rifles, they sell shotguns too. We're talking about single-shot shotguns and popular gauges for turkey hunters, single-shot youth shotguns, which are a great way to start hunting, and actually the way I started as a bird hunter, and even lever-action 410 shotguns that are good for both rabbit and squirrel hunting as well as personal defense. All of these shotguns are made in America. They all have the Henry Lifetime Satisfaction Guarantee, and you can find a dealer near you or talk to a member of Henry's award-winning customer service staff by just logging on to henryusa.com. That's henryusa.com, and don't forget to ask for your free catalog and decals while you're there. As we wrap things up, I can't tell you how excited I am to be in Texas this weekend covering the Bassmaster Classic. I love bass fishing. I just absolutely love it. And to be at the Super Bowl of tournament bass fishing, well, let's just say this has been a real treat and something I look forward to doing again in the future. As a matter of fact, you can do it too. The Classic is free to attend, so make plans to attend in 2022. And the place to go to find out where the Classic is going to be and find out information about planning your trip there is one and the same, Bassmaster.com. Until next time, here's hoping you are blessed and that you'll be able to spend some time too on the water or in the woods or doing something else in nature. After all, it is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.